This is a good way to start, I think, right?
And Friday? This Friday?
Friday!
You can move the mountains. Yeah. You can move. Oh. You can move the mountains. You can move the mountains. You can move the mountains.
We can cut that out.
We'll have to cut by.
You know, I think in listening to you, there are going to be those probably that watch this video at some point, and they say, well, that's all well and good, but you're a pastor, and you were called to a different level because of pastoring, and there may be some truth to that, but there also, I think all of us can be used as a tool for God's kingdom. And it may be a different type of tool. We may not need more pastors. We may need Sunday school teachers. We may need somebody in music ministry. We may need somebody in outreach. And so that level of commitment isn't tied to just being a pastor. That commitment to God and following Him and saying, God, I'm gonna step away from some of these other things in the world to give you mine. You said those words, I want to be good at you. And that's for everybody in the church.
Absolutely.
And so advice for some of our group, what would you say, what helped them get to that point of commitment, and maybe describe the importance of that, even for someone that's just a good saint in the church that gives of themselves and their time and their effort, that maybe not will ever be a pastor and don't want to be a pastor.
Right. That's a very good question, really good question, because everybody's not going to be a pastor. Everybody's not going to be a music leader or even involved in music ministry, but everybody has a ministry. Because we're called to be disciples first. So I would say to our young people today, if you develop a desire in your heart to be a disciple, I want to be a disciple of Christ. I want to know the voice of God in my life, where God can lead me and I can do things. Because here's the thing, whether you're a preacher, whether you're a musician, whether you're just a good saint, whether you're a person of encouragement, those things are all needed desperately in the kingdom of God. Like I said, I think the defining moment that shifted my life was a simple testimony from a young man. He was not even a preacher. He gave a testimony that moved me to the place that I would change my life forever, that I wanted to change my life. So for all of our youth that says, well, maybe I'm this or maybe I'll be that, or I don't know what I'm going to be. If you choose to be a disciple, and you choose to follow Jesus, and you choose to communicate with Him and allow Him to communicate with you. One thing that I've learned in life, even as a young person, when you talk to God, He talks back. When we say, I'm not hearing God, I'm not hearing, most of the time I relate that to, that's because you're not talking to Him. See, we might be thinking about it, or we might be thinking about God or life, but we're not actually stopping and talking to God, so He'll talk back to us. And so I think that's so vital that we're not worried about now if I'm going to be a pastor, or I'm going to be a music director, or I'm going to be a Sunday school teacher, or any of that. If you decide I want to be a disciple, I want to be able to impact people's lives in one way or another, because of my life and my communication with God, and that I am a follower of Him. If you fall in love with that, everything else falls into place, and God will help you decide that track that you need to be on to be successful.
And I think the key in that of striving to be a disciple of Christ is consistency. I mean, it's easy to say, I'm going to be this or that or whatever, but if we don't put the action behind it and we don't truly fall in love with that calling and with that purpose, it's really just words, right? I mean, I could say today that I'm a member of the New York Yankees, but I'm no more a member of the Yankees than anybody else, right? The fact that there's work to get you to that place. It takes work to get through, some of the sports or different things like that to make it to a certain level. And that same commitment, I think, is what you've explained and talked through here, in that taking that passion that you had for sports and really just kind of diverting it and refocusing that towards your relationship with God, and all the passion and all the energy and all the commitment and all the practice and all the things that go into being a good athlete were then turned and targeted towards becoming exactly that, a disciple, following Christ, and allowing God to direct you even further down that road and down that path. So as we, I guess, maybe come to a close on this one, if you could look back now, living through where you've been in life, the experiences you've had in life, and could give some advice to past self, if you could look back at young Steve Simpson before he ever was called to the ministry or anything like that, maybe even as a youth that would be sitting on one of our pews today, what advice would you give to past self looking forward, knowing and having the wisdom and the knowledge that you've picked up over the years, the experience you've had over time?
You know, one thing I believe, Brother Jeremy, in that as a young person, peer pressure is so great. And we hear those negative voices in our lives, and we say, well, I can't, I can't do that, or I'm shy, or I'm this, or I'm that, and I can't achieve. That pressure on us makes us say, no, I can't. And so we revert to what is natural. Mm-hmm. You know, some people just naturally are good maybe at video games and all of this stuff, and, you know, whatever you're into, or you're active in a sports program, or you're active in this or that, or you're intellectual, or you like reading, or whatever that thing is that we're about, because it's natural to us, right? So my advice as a young person is to get over our natural self, to let our spiritual being have a chance. And I think that's what happened to me, that God saw my level of commitment to Him on that softball field when I said, God, this is it. I give it to you. And that was literally my last day on the softball field, and I really never went back. And God knew that level of commitment. And so it goes back to what you said, Brother Jeremy, about commitment. You cannot do this without commitment, because one day I'll be this, the next day I'll be that. You know, kids go through those cycles. You know, they want to be a doctor. No, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to be on the space program. I'm going to do all of these various things in life. And all along, what we're really doing is we're playing a video game, or we're being involved so much in this and that or the other thing. And we're not even allowing the Lord to use us to say, what can I be for Him? In a follower of Jesus Christ, what does God see me best as, that I could please Him? So in that level of commitment, when the Lord saw that Steve was going to be committed, He says, I'm going to use that. And though it took a period of time to get me from point A to point B, that level of commitment got me there.
Right.
To trust the Lord and say, okay, God, what do you want with me? And so we can't always revert back to our natural self. We got to get over our natural self into that supernatural realm. And you can't do that without prayer, communication with God. You can't do that without reading the Word. So to answer your question in a nutshell, if I would speak to my former self, I would say, Steve, you need to commit more time to reading the Word and understanding God. You can't understand all of God just by talking to God. That's one element of understanding God and hoping He would speak back to us. But God is in His written Word. Mm-hmm. And if we'd be devoted to that, man, and find our place in the Word of God, as that Word would begin to unfold to us, that in itself would speak to us, and God would begin to reveal Himself to us through His Word. So commitment to His Word, it's the basics of who we say we should be, and commitment to prayer. Instead of commitment to all these other things in life that take up so much of our time. And we all can do that. We all can enjoy watching a game. We all can enjoy this and that or the other thing. But somewhere we got to say, we got to carve out that time, get away from our natural self to allow our spiritual man to thrive and for God to speak to us. So the challenge today for all of you young people is to realize God has greater things for me that I cannot even see, but I cannot achieve them until I give myself over to him and say, enough of me, more of you. And that's what the Lord really wants from us.
Well, and as you kind of spoke through that a little bit, there was one last thing that kind of popped up, and if you have any follow-up, we can hit that before we end here. But you know, in the age we live too, we are so instant. Everything is instant. My food is instantly heated up in the microwave, and we have fast food and all the different things there. But through all that we've been talking about here, that process that it took. And I know we mentioned David a little bit, but that process, you know, David didn't go from his father asking him to watch a few sheep to the next day killing Goliath. There was a process there that kind of went through. And I think that's an important part there of this journey, and everything from, you know, making those decisions in life, from, you know, shifting your focus and wanting to follow after God in your life, and dedicating your life to being a disciple. These are things, even reading your word and even praying is not something that just feels comfortable and just happens overnight. Just, you know, you go from, this is the first time I'm really going to focus on reading my Bible or praying, to I'm just, you know, I'm spending an hour in prayer, and I'm reading the Bible for chapter after chapter. A lot of times these things are things that develop through that process. And so maybe you want to speak to that process a little bit in their lives, because, you know, that's how they're going to grow, is to be able to endure and to have the patience, like Zach said, to make it through a process of becoming a true disciple.
The process is slow sometimes, and often is, as with many things. Trusting in the Lord and allowing that process to just take hold, but being steady. So patience is such a key with consistency. Just being faithful, but being patient to just keep doing it. That we're not going to be everything we want to be the next day, or the next week,
Right.
or even maybe the next year.
Yeah.
It's going to happen though over time. So, you know, David didn't go from slaying Goliath to being the man.
Right.
It really did not happen like that,
Right.
as we would want to think. You know, people were enamored by the fact that this young boy killed Goliath, but that didn't make him the king. It was a process. He even had to run from Saul for a long time to survive. So David had to be faithful, very much so, in that I know the anointing is on me, but I'm going to be faithful and I'm going to trust. And I'm not even going to try to assert my authority, even though I know I have it in God. I'm going to stay who I am. And in that commitment to slow down. Let me say this in this last session here. Sometimes we're in this instant world, as you said. We want it like right now, you know, and we want to go to Bible college right now. And sometimes that may not be the case. Sometimes we might need a year of development. And I find it even works better for us the older we get, the more settled we get, the more mature we get. The aspect of college or various things works better for us because we become stronger in God and stronger in our nature, not to allow things to sway us so much. So when I went to college as a 33-year-old man, I knew what I was at college for. I was there to study. I really wasn't there for that social aspect, and there's nothing wrong with that. As young people, they come, but they find it hard to find that balance sometimes. In that social aspect and the spiritual aspect. I went to learn, so I was all into the. You know, I made good grades because I studied hard. I worked hard to get that, to attain, because that was absolutely what I was there for. So what I'm saying is that patience in the process is very, very important, because right now might not be the time for you. It might be a season that God is trying to get us prepared. So yes, that consistency along with those patience means everything. Because what we got to say is, I trust you, God. If today's not today, maybe tomorrow is. And if we have that kind of faith in God and trust in Him and waiting on Him, things always work out, because God doesn't make mistakes. And if we trust Him and follow Him, it absolutely will happen.
Yeah, that's good.
That's awesome. Well, I don't have anything else to add, Jeremy. I think this was wonderful. There's a plethora of information and wisdom in this man that we call Pastor, and we probably will try to do this again sometime. But I know that we have a lot of people in our group that are in a transition phase, and so much. I think you probably need to watch this video a couple of times and just listen to some of the things that this man has said, because it was impactful for me just sitting here talking with him. But we appreciate his time today. Absolutely. It was a fun time, and maybe a little more serious than some of our others have been. But that's good and that's needed.
Right. I mean, ultimately, our goal here with making some of these videos, yes, is to have fun and give you, something to watch and a way to interact with each other somewhat, or to connect with you in some way. But if we're not moving forward and challenging each other spiritually, and we're just a TV show or something else, we're just entertainment, right? And ultimately, Zach and I both have said we want these to be something that not only is fun and entertaining and whatever, but also is a way for us to truly challenge you and to challenge you to continue to grow. And what better way than to have our shepherd here, our pastor, with us a little bit. And so we do appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Your answers with us through these questions and all. And as always, we love you guys. We hope you enjoy these. If you have any questions or anything in the future you'd like to see us talk with Pastor about, definitely shoot those our way. And until next time, we love you guys. We'll see you.
Okay, so here we go. Here's my story. There was a young man that came into our church. He was new. His name was Davon. And as coming in, I noticed he come through the foyer one day, and he was looking up on the wall of this foyer, and we had this memorial up, and these pictures of all these people on this memorial wall. And Davon asked me. He said, "Pastor, what is all of this? What are these pictures? What does this mean?" And I said, "Davon, this is people who have died in service, and we're honoring them on this memorial wall." And then I noticed a strange look on Davon's face, and his eyes got really big. And he said, "Pastor," and I said, "What is it, Davon?" And he said, "I just have one question." He said, "Which service did they die in? The 9:30 or the 11 o'clock? And so there you go. Davon was trying to find out maybe the odds of which service he needed to come to. There you go. God bless.
Oh, that's good. That's good.